Hello, 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 and welcome to part three. Part three. One, two, three. Un, deux, trois. Part three of the AccuMark 3D version 12 What's New videos. You have made it. So hopefully if you're at part three, that means you also viewed part one and part two. So no skipping. Part one and part two set a great foundation for what we will talk about now. So the method for how the videos were set up, if you have watched the others, you are well aware of now. But in video one, in part one, we covered most of the enhancements and changes that affect Model Editor, Pattern Design, AccuMark Explorer, as it relates to AccuMark 3D. In part two, we got to take a look at things that are going on in the 3D viewport. So lots of really cool and fun features there. And now what we're going to do in part three is take a look at some of the other features, and these are all pretty big features that we're going to go over today, or during this video. But they really deserve their own space. So here we go. I do have a few other quick things that I wanted to mention, or things that we need to talk about before we dive in completely. Just small things. So we spoke already about the changes to the AccuMark 3D ribbon. So the 3D ribbon for V12 is different than it has been in previous versions. All these new features, we had to make room for them. The Preferences tab panel here has also changed up a bit. So grid size has moved. We tried to give the options here a configuration that is a little more visually pleasing, but it's still not quite there yet. But just so you know, grid size has moved. So don't confuse your grid size with your hem mass multiplier. And there are some options that have been taken out of the Preferences tab. So we looked at things that people don't change very often or don't use very much, and they were things like the layer spacing or the checkbox to start simulation as soon as the simulation begins. So those have been moved to your preferences in edit here. So if I go to customize preferences and take a look at my 3D tab, that layer spacing option is right here. And I also have the checkbox to have my simulation start. Now, for those of you who aren't aware of what this does, the checkbox to start simulation will make the simulation start as soon as Blender opens. Me personally, I like to let Blender open and then start the simulation myself, because sometimes I may make adjustments to the pattern pieces before the simulation starts. I may want to freeze some of the pieces like we did in that cool demonstration of freeze piece in video 2. So I prefer to work with start simulation unchecked, but that's totally up to you. The other thing that we've added here in the Preferences tab while we're here is in V12 you have the option to change the color of your Place on Avatar window to a gradient. So you've always been able to adjust that color, but now you can adjust the color to a gradient. So you have an avatar top color and an avatar bottom color, and changing that bottom color is going to give you that sort of a result. And that just adds a sense of depth to that window, so just something else to know you have there. I'm going to change mine back to white. White is more documentation friendly. All right, so time to dive right in. One of the changes that we made in V12 that was a game changer for us is adding support for different texture maps. So those of you who are very 3D savvy know that there are several optical scanners on the market, and these optical scanners capture different versions of your image to allow you to create 3D textures of your fabric. It makes it look a little more realistic. So these scanners would be like the Visu scanner, or products designed and created by X-Rite that just capture images of fabrics and materials so that you can bring those into 3D and get something that looks a lot more realistic. So I am going to go to my Model 3D garment properties, And we can take a look at our fabric table. And your fabric table is where you're going to add those Visu or X-Rite images. And they come in the form of separate image maps that can be saved out as raster images like TIFFs or JPEGs or PNGs. And notice now in your fabric table at the end here, you have spaces to import things like reflection maps, specular maps, which relate to how shiny something is, a height, texture, roughness, and the transparency, and all those maps now can go in your fabric table. So you see here down at the bottom of this fabric table, I already have some loaded. Okay. So we also added the option, if you do have a Visu scanner, there is an option to import XText textures in your right-click menu from your fabric table. So when you're in the fabric table, you just right-click on an entry, and then you can click Import XText, and it will give you an option to navigate to that XText file on your system. The XText file is the proprietary format or the type of file that the Visu scanner creates. So if you guys are working with a Visu scanner, then you can import all those maps directly into your fabric table. Yes, I am sure I would like to exit. Click OK. So I have those textures applied here on my fabric, on my pieces. So you can see the textures look a lot nicer. And then when we simulate later, you'll see what that looks like in 3D. And this is something that's super essential for render mode. So in v12, we now have the option to create photorealistic rendering. And to do that and to get the best quality, you want to have these texture maps applied. So we have some libraries and some fabrics that we've scanned that we can share. And you also have the option to take a texture that has been scanned and then drop another color onto it. So if it's not exactly the color you want or the material you want, if you have a print or something like that, you can drop that on top and still get that photorealistic look. So with that said, we're going to move on to another exciting feature. And that's our new avatar edit option in our new avatar edit platform. So my veterans of AccuMark 3D know that in previous versions of our avatar edit, you had to open a model in PDS, you had to launch the simulation, and then edit the avatar in Blender. We're still editing the avatars in Blender, but now the edit has its own platform. So you don't have to go into launching a style to do it. You don't even have to have 3D open. So if I were to close this window, let me save first. Yes. Here in the 2D workspace, I still have the option to launch my avatar editor. So you don't have to open a style or anything. You just have to open PDS and make sure you have a work area or open. So close that, just make sure you have something, and then you can launch the avatar editor. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and open my Polo back up so that once we're done editing, I'll be ready to go. Okay, so the new avatar edit platform, this is what it looks like. I know it's not incredibly beautiful, but we'll beautify it later. We've been focusing on trying to get the features and functions in that people have been requesting. So it's important to note this is a completely new platform. It is not at all built on top of what we've had previously. So that means that there are some features that we've had before that we don't have now. But when you see what we have, I think you'll understand that it's a great trade-off. So we are building again from the ground up, and we have taken an approach that allows customers to configure their own points of measure, to place their own points of measure, and then edit the circumferences of the avatar in those places. So it's a lot going on. I think this has been a great effort. I really applaud our engineering department for getting this done and so wonderfully. We're also excited to hear your feedback. Let us know what would make this better for you. So in this avatar edit platform, you have three options here. You can load from a library of avatars we provide. This will include 10 adults, 5 male, 5 female, from sizes 2 to 24 for the females and size 34 to 58 for the males. Those are American sizes, pretty close to American ASTM standard sizes. And you can bring those avatars into this platform to see what the measurements are yourself. So if you want to know how that compares to a European size, you can bring those in here and measure them yourself. So you also have the option to revise. If you create an avatar with this platform, you can bring that avatar back in later if you decide you want to adjust one of their circumferences. You will not be able to move the points of measure on an avatar you're revising, but you can take the points of measure that are there and make them bigger or smaller. And then you have an option to load a scan. So this would be like loading a body scan, importing an OBJ. This is the platform for where that will happen now. So in previous versions, you had an import OBJ option in pattern design. Now you're going to launch the avatar editor and bring that body scan in here. If that body scan is of good quality, it's clean and it's symmetrical, it's pretty close to being symmetrical, you will also be able to place points of measure on that avatar and make circumference adjustments if you need to. So this is a pretty powerful tool. I'm going to go ahead to get started and just load from library. And here's that library of 10 adults that I told you about. You also can edit the child and baby now. These 12 avatars that you have here, baby, child, and the 10 adults, these are all just gray colored avatars. So they don't have skin and they don't have hair. They're just bodies. So these were generated mostly from body scan data. So they have bodies that have very human-like shapes. So this is going to make your simulations look better, all around win-win. We also have our friends Jane and Jennifer here. So you can edit Jane and Jennifer. Jane and Jennifer do have hair and they do have skin tones. So these look a little more realistic. They don't look completely human, but if you want this look instead of the gray avatar, then you have this as an option. So this is my friend Jennifer. All right, so now that I have imported this avatar, you can change your units here to inches or centimeters. I'll go ahead and work in centimeters. And then you have the option to rotate the avatar as well if you need to. The avatars that we provide in the library are already rotated correctly, so you don't need to make any special rotations. But those of you who've tried to import avatars in the past know that sometimes the avatar file or the OBJ that you've been given from a body scanner may not come into AccuMark facing the correct direction. They may have their back to you, or they may actually be horizontal in the viewport. Well, this gives you the option now to adjust and rotate X, Y, and Z. Okay, so the avatar edit platform for V12, you have to work in order. And the order is you adjust the height and inseam first. So these are your horizontal or your vertical measurements. And then you can go to points of measure and load your points of measure, where you'll have the option to create new points of measure, delete points of measure, and define your own. You can even save your own points of measure, and then when you load the next avatar, it will have those points of measure. And then after you've done those steps, you can go and adjust their circumference measurement. So you can change the hip, the bust, and all those, wherever you place a point of measure, you can make an adjustment there. Now, the system gives you full control. So if you enter crazy measurements, you can get crazy results. So be proud of yourself if you do that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start by editing my height. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and enter the measurements for my height. I want to change her height to being 166.25. And this is measuring from the floor to the top of her head. And then I'm going to adjust her inseam as well to being 77.5. All right. In this dialog, you have the option to scale the arm length with the torso. This is something I recommend. One of the issues, one of the things that we still have to work through with this avatar edit platform is perfecting how we can adjust the arm length. Right now, the arm length measurement is not measured in a way that you can actually measure with a tape measure. So we'll work on that, but fret not. When I show you what we can do with this platform, you'll still see the point and where we're going, and you can kind of get an idea with where we want to take this for the future. So we are going to continue to build on it. But I do recommend leaving scale arm length with torso on. And then you can turn scaling on or off. Scaling is going to take whatever adjustments you make to the avatar's height, and it will adjust the circumference measurements proportionally. So I'm going to leave both of those on and click OK. Okay, and once I click OK, it goes ahead and it adjusted the avatar's height for me. There we go. Now that I've adjusted the height, I can go and load points of measure. So I was playing around with my friend Alex, AccuPlan product owner and 3D enthusiast, earlier, and we were adding points of measure, and one of the ones that I added was just this XYZ as a test. So I'm going to go ahead and delete XYZ, because that's not what I need. To delete a point of measure, you go in the points of measure box here, and you have add, delete, move, and then you have torso, leg, and arm as options. I'm going to click torso, and then I'm going to select this one, and you just click to select and click OK. There you go. I've deleted it. Now, if I want to move one, like say I want to move my low waist because that's a little high, I'm going to go to move, torso, and I'm going to click low waist. Now, there is no visual feedback when you click. So just click right on that anchor and you've got it. And now move it to where you want it. Click OK. There you go. And you'll notice that the measurement updated as soon as I did that. Perfect. All right, and if you want to add more points of measure, if you have points of measure that are specific to your type of garment or things like that, you can also add them. So let's say we're going to add a high waist measurement. That would be great. I'm going to click add here, and then you see I can just scroll this guy. I click there, and then what's this? We're going to say high waist. Click OK, and you see it's added that custom point of measure. So once I've created my point of measure, if I want to save these, so when I load other avatars, it has this configuration, I can click save. And now it's kept a record of this. So when I load another avatar, it will have that high waist measurement. And it will use the same percentages to sort of figure out where they should be on that avatar, and you can always move and adjust them. All right, so once that part is done, I can go ahead and I'm going to say resize. And this is going to open up my options to resize down here. So click resize. Now notice my points of measure have grayed out. I cannot go back and adjust my point of measure now. So even if I bring in an avatar that I'm revising, you can't do that. So make sure you are very confident in the placement of those points of measure. All right, and I am going to open up a duplicate window. Blender has this really cool tool that allows you to have multiple windows open. And it's just the same thing there, but I want to have multiple angles so we can see from the side a little bit as I'm going to make adjustments here, and I click in this window. All right, so I am going to make adjustments to a few of her measurements here. To make an adjustment to a specific area of the body, you're going to want to go in that area. You see we have a torso, a leg, and an arm region, and you want to activate the fields that you're going to adjust. So let me make this window a little bit bigger. You want to activate the fields you're going to adjust. So in this case, I'm going to adjust the hip, waist, and chest. Notice my high waist measurement that I plotted, this is a custom point of measure, is here. So if I wanted to edit that one as well, I could. Any field that is not activated is going to scale with the avatar as I adjust these other measurements. So for example, and what I mean by that is If I decide that these are the measurements that I have, my customer has told me I have a chest, waist, and height of X, Y, and Z. But then I look at other measurements. Say the customer also provided an underbust, and the underbust measurement just happened to be 72.7. I can activate that field, and then this number will not change as I make adjustments. So any active field is going to adjust to the value you type in. So if you don't type in a value at all, it'll stay where it is. And if you do type in a value, it will adjust when we resize. Now, any of these fields that are unactivated will scale proportionally. And we did this because a lot of times customers would give us avatar measurements, but they wouldn't have a complete set. They would only have certain measurements, and then they just need the rest of the body to sort of go in line with those measurements. So this is how you do that. So I'm going to actually deactivate underbust, and I'm going to enter my measurements here. So my chest, I'm going to change to 89.5. My waist, I'm going to change to 72.5. And my hip, I'm going to change to 95.25. Okay. Once you enter your measurements, and this is where you're going to want to pay close attention to our girl here. Once you enter your measurements, then you want to go and say resize. And this is going to take those measurements and apply those to the avatar. So we can see here her body has changed. All right. If you need to add more measurements, then you would just go ahead and add in those fields and then click resize, and it would update again. Once you're done, then you just go here and you enter a name for your avatar. Strike the enter key, and then you can save. This is going to put this avatar in your avatars folder. So in earlier versions of AccuMark 3D, we also had customers trying to create plus size avatars. And when you try to create a plus size avatar from an avatar that began at like a size 2, that is problematic because then the shape usually ends up being not correct. So here's an avatar that is a plus size body already, and you can see her shape is a lot more natural than it would be if we tried to get this body type from Jill. So the process would be the same. You are going to modify your height if you need to make any adjustments there. So it's going to load the points of measure long enough to adjust the height and scale those, and then go ahead and make any adjustments that you need to, the same way we did with our Jennifer avatar. And again, same rules and standards for even your baby and your child. So then if we load points of measure, I didn't edit the height there, I closed out of it. If we load points of measure, then you'll notice that I also have that same high waist that I added there because I saved it. So if I didn't save my points of measure here, it wouldn't have retained this. But what you can do is configure it specifically for your company. So if you have a certain standard set of POMs, point of measure, then you can go ahead and add those here. When you're using one of the avatars that are just gray or bodies, you also have the options to change the color. And in the avatar edit documentation, we have some recipes for some colors if you want something that is close to skin tone. But keep in mind that these avatars and these colors are just solid colors, so it's never going to look like a skin tone, but you do have the option to change the color. So if you want a dress form, or if you want an avatar that looks more like a store mannequin or something like that, then you could apply color. So if you wanted it to be white or black or any color of the rainbow. You can create that with your color picker here. Okay, so then I'll also just really quick load and let you guys see our baby. So there's our little guy. And you can edit his POMs as well. So there you go. And that is avatar edit. So I am going to close this. I'm not going to save. Now that I'm back in pattern design, I want to go ahead and use the avatar I just created. So I'm going to go right click menu, model 3D garment properties, and in my avatars folder, I can use that avatar that I just created. When you use an avatar that's Jane or Jennifer, note in the place on avatar window, she will appear to be gray. This is okay. Don't worry or be alarmed. All right. Now to simulate this style, I'm going to use some of the tricks that we learned in the second video. So I'm going to start by freezing my collar. And then I'm going to allow the rest of the garment to simulate. If you look here, you can see I have those visible textures applied, so you can see how much more realistic my fabric looks now. Notice my avatar Jennifer also has point of measure that I can show and hide. And now that my shirt is looking like it's in a decent position, I'm going to go to move. Bring this lower. And then I'm going to click unfreeze. Okay, and pause my sim. Whoops. See, I have problems back here, a few little collisions. So I'm going to neutralize those by just using my move tool. Okay, so now, sort of our grand finale here for our 3D What's New videos for V12. Let's talk about render mode. At the bottom of the Gerber tab, or not all the way at the bottom, but close, under overview material, you have the option to toggle render mode. Render mode is another one of those things that is very system performance specific. So you really want to make sure you have a powerful computer if you're going to do lots of renders. I'm going to enter render mode. And rendered images are done as 2D images. So every time I move my avatar or I move around here, note you see how it gets grainy again? Well, it's restarting that process each time you move, because it's going to take the 2D image that you're seeing on your screen now and then go through and pixel by pixel create a photorealistic rendered image. Now, in this setting here, you'll see that you have a background, like she's at a photo studio. This is there to help reflect the light better, but if it's in your way, you can always just right click and then strike the delete key and click OK, and that will delete the background. This also helps your simulation run a little bit faster too, or your render. So then here at the top of the screen, you can also see it's telling you about how long the rendering will take. But already we're able to see a big difference in the quality of our simulation. All right, so we're done rendering. I sped that up using a little movie magic, so we didn't actually have to wait. But this is the result of the simulation rendered now, and you can see that looks a lot better than the standard view that you get with AccuMark 3D. So that's render mode. Now, the easiest thing to do is to just take a screenshot now if you want to capture images of your render. We are working on having render mode collaborate with the export image feature that we saw in the video 2 of the series. And you'll notice that that button is still there. We have some more work to do on that, so give us some time, and by the time v12 is released, it should be good to go. For those of you who aren't watching until after v12 was released, then you're all set. But for this round of beta, we're still working on that. That's an area that we're still cleaning up and improving. Now, you can show and hide your avatar in this mode when you're in render mode, but every time you make a change, so if you move the avatar or anything like that, you're going to have to allow it to render again. So I'm going to go ahead and hide the avatar and get us a closer view of the garment. And then we're just going to let this render again with the help of some movie magic. Okay, so the render is complete. And like I said, now you can take screenshots. I'm going to go ahead and grab one right now myself. And go ahead and clip it in Paint or edit it in Photoshop, but you have your rendered image. Like I said, we're creating new ways and easier ways to export these images once you've rendered them. So we'll keep plugging away at that. Well, friends, pat yourself on the back if you are now at the end of video 3, because you have made it through 3 What's New videos for AccuMark 3D V12. I really do hope you see some progress. I hope there are some features that you're excited to experiment with and use. If you are playing around with these features and you have input or you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Again, I cannot stress that enough. Shoot us an email if you send us an email, because sometimes things do tend to get a little busy in product management, just a little bit. If you send us an email and you do not get a response, do not hesitate to send another one. We do not intend to ignore or miss anyone's emails, but sometimes some seasons are busier than others. So if you send a message and you don't get a response, send another one, and we will make sure we get back to you. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy AccuMark 3D version 12. Enjoy everything that the rest of the AccuMark teams are doing. The AccuPlan team is doing a great job. The 2D team is doing an excellent job. And we all really care very much about these products, and we're trying to do our very best to get things as good out to the field as soon as we can. So thank you so much. Bye-bye for now.